Hi, welcome to another episode of Ask the Expert. Today we're joined by Didier Balocco from onsemi, and today we're going to be talking about integrated power modules for motor control. Hi Didier, welcome to Design Spark and Ask the Expert. Would you like to say hello to us?
Hi Greg, hello guys.
Great. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through a few questions about your range of products within the power modules for motor control, and if you could explain just a few things that may help our listeners and users of those types of products, and explain just a little bit about the range, that would be great. So in terms of integrated motor control, what do you think is driving the need for putting the electronics closer or within the motor itself, and what are the benefits of that, do you reckon?
First of all, integrating, moving to electronic drive, it's because of the energy efficiency requirement. Using a DC inverter with a BLDC motors give you the better efficiency, and you can save up to 30% energy compared to a regular synchronous motor. And also more and more motors are used in the industry for robotics, cobots, and crane for assembly line, and also in our consumer field, we will see that later, for any kind of pump, washing machine, and so on. A lot of motors are used, and this is why we moved to this invertized motor with electronics. So regarding the trend is clearly to embed the inverter inside the motor or inside the application directly. This has two benefits. First, the system is more compact, and we have also less EMI, because at the output of the inverter to the motor, we have high frequency current and voltage going through those cables. And this can generate a lot of EMI, and also can perturbate in a near field application, the application that are around the system. Another trend also is to integrate all the power part block that we call a module. Integrating, we will see different kind of application, but it simplifies the design of the system, having on one side the microcontroller, on the other side the power component, and at the end the motor. So it makes only three basic blocks, very easy to design, and the customer can more focus on the control technique of the motors and the software for driving the motors, than spending time designing the power stage that will drive the motor. And in this way, it saves design time, but also having one block integrating all the element reduce the EMI, because we can control EMI inside the module. You have a more an easy, compact design to assemble, to make and the assembly is easier. And it reduces also the assembly cost and increase durability, because you have one power component instead of having 6 IGBT, 6 driver, one shunt to measure the current, and so on. So this is the trend actually in motor drive.
Okay, and with that trend, do you see that the sort of like the low expertise that was on the previous slide, is that lowering the cost to entry for motor control solutions? Are you seeing more people are able to deliver rather than maybe outsource that technology and or get specialist people in to use motor control applications?
I think yes, there's a lot of customer with a dedicated expertise, and it's much easier to make a motor control. You can find for people who are making the control, you can find all the library to drive your motor. And then for the power part, you just drop the module and this is it. And you don't have to take care too much about EMI and so on, because EMI has been controlled inside the module by sometimes tuning the gate resistor, the gate resistor of the IGBTs or the MOSFET.
Okay.
Inside the module.
And what are the common solutions for building a motor drive power stage? Could you take us through a couple of those?
Yeah, there's three basic solutions for motor drive. You can use what I can call the old-fashioned way, using discrete components like IGBT in TO247 and driver and so on, and you make the full assembly, the layout of the PCB. You can use an IPM. It's a module that integrates all the power component and the driver. And for higher power, you can use what we call a PIM module. It's just a module with only the power. The driver is outside the module. And these modules are generally for higher power.
Okay, so IPM with driver, PIM without driver.
Yes, yeah. And if you PIM allows more flexible topology, or there's more topology available. We can have the regular inverter configuration that is called a 6-pack, and also adding the rectifiers for the 3-phase rectifier and an IGBT and a diode to make the break of the IGBT. So you can have a complete solution in a PIM module, while in IPM, most of the time, due to the size of the module, we integrate only the drivers, the inverter stage with the 6 IGBT and the driver to drive the gate, plus the gate resistor and the NTC for a thermal sensor. In discrete, it's very flexible. You can make any schematic.
Okay. Does this lead itself to any pros or cons between using an IPM or a PIM, or is IPM more for the consumer because it might be smaller and PIM is for industrial, or is that just too simple of a kind of explanation that I'm looking for there?
It's not so black and white. Let's say there's some gray zone. So regarding comparing the two solutions or the three solutions between discrete IPM and PIM, depends on what you compare. In terms of cost, discrete is the best. You can have multiple supplier and so on, and you can have a very good cost of the solution. The drawback is in terms of layout, EMI, and so on, it's much more complicated. While in IPM, this has been already studied by onsemi, and the layout is much easier because you have only one component on the board. PIM is in between. You have the driver to be outside, so it's a compromise between all discrete and IPM, where you have the driver integrated. Most of the time, if you have one component, reliability and failure rate is higher. So that's why IPM has a good reliability, a very good reliability, while PIM integrating several components has a good reliability, not the best. And discrete has a very poor reliability because you have many components on the board.
Yeah.
Regarding in terms of portfolio, I will say that discrete, you have a good portfolio. IPM, it's more difficult. You have many shape and so on, and not so alternative. And for PIM, you have standard size available.
Okay, and just for the applications of such, would you say that is one more favored than the other? So for example, would I use IPM, or would IPM be used more within the automotive industry, for example? Could you give us any reference?
Yes, sure. So regarding the usage of motor control, first of all, we can split the motor control in two big areas. One is the industrial, three big areas, let's say. Industrial, consumer, and automotive. For consumer, you will find all applications like air conditioning, refrigerator, washing machine, dishwasher, fan, circulation pump, and so on for heaters. For industrial, you will find high voltage air conditioning, all factory automation with robots and a crane for assembly line, and also industrial pump with big motors, or same with escalator, automatic doors, and so on. For automotive, you will find the application in the steering drive or in the air conditioning. And now with the increase of electrical vehicle, you have all the HEV or EV vehicle, electrical vehicle, where the drive will be for driving the wheel and provide the vehicle to be able to go and move.
Okay.
Going a little bit in detail about application range between IPM, PIM, and discrete, let's say that IPM is the low voltage and low power application. It's limited. IPM are limited to 75 amp and 1200 volt. And if we want to go higher in terms of current capability, due to the space used by the driver inside the module will increase too much, and the cost compromise will be not so optimum. Discrete can cover a little bit more in terms of power range, going up to 150 amp, going to 1700 volt. We find some discrete up to this voltage. But PIM is really the high power solution. You can go up to 500 amps, 1600 volt. There's no limit. With PIM, you can find either single die or multi-die solution in a big package capable of handling a lot of current and voltage.
Okay. So I think what we'll do as well, Didier, these slides are really beneficial. We'll share these slides within an attachment when we put the article live on Design Spark.
Okay, no problem. And if you have the next slide is showing how our product range is split over let's say the application and the power range. You see that we have many different IPM for many different applications and power. It's the motor power. So we cover from 50 watt up to 7.5 kilowatt in terms of motor power. And for all the application I have listed, like a very small pump, circulation pump for heaters, up to dishwasher, washing machine, and air conditioning in consumer application, and going above with industrial fan and pump, industrial high voltage air conditioner, with a range of modules dedicated for that.
Okay.
Going back to automotive, automotive is rising up using module. Module has been used in automotive in low voltage application, like 12 volt for pump, and fan for air conditioning inside the car, or steering wheels assistance, where we have module because those transfer mold module give us a very good durability compared to having 6 IGBT or 6 MOSFET. Module has been widely adopted in automotive, either in the form of IPM, and now with high voltage, we have a new range of module with a high voltage component and in PIM module, meaning that we have the driver external of the module. And you see two of those type of module on the bottom of the screen you are showing, Greg, where you see two PIM module dedicated for EV cars, and we are currently releasing.
Okay, so you're actually meeting the need now for sort of like the new generation of electric vehicles as well coming through this.
Yes, and they are looking for high reliability in cars, and transfer mold module makes sense. First, because they have a very good reliability, and second, they have very good thermal capability, good isolation performances. So it's really adopted by automotive.
Okay, so in terms of the on-semiconductor product power integration modules, how do yours differ? What are the enhanced features that a design engineer can use, for example?
So from on, we have looked at to create our power integrated module. And going back to what I'm saying just a few minutes ago, automotive industry has adopted the transfer mold module. And when we have started creating our range of module that we call F1 and F2 module with press fit pins and gel fill, we have observed that those module was very poor in terms of reliability. If we compare thermal cycling of a module, F2 module compared to an IPM, we observe that the IPM module has 10 times more capability to handle thermal cycling, meaning going from minus 65 to 155 and so on without any power. But now, if we apply power on those modules and make some turn on, turn off with a certain frequency and current, what we have observed in gel fill module is that the bonding, after a period of time, due to this mechanical stress of the flow of current, you have some kind of vibration induced by the flow of current that lift up the wires. And with transfer mold, as you have this paste, this very solid paste around the bonding has a tendency to lift, let's say, later, or needs more stress, electrical stress to lift up. So you will obtain, in fact, two times more duration between the time you observe those lift up of bonding. So it gives you twice the lifetime of the module just by molding the module instead of using gel.
Okay.
So that's why we have introduced this new concept of what we call transfer mold pin, where we have the same packages as IPM, except we don't have the driver inside.
Yeah.
And we have only the power stage. And we mold the module in order to get these advantages of having 10 times more thermal cycle and twice the lifetime in terms of power cycle. Another advantages of the transfer mold pin, we will see later. But regarding also the reliability test that you are showing actually, you see that if we do thermal cycling, you can see that our transfer mold module will survive 1,000 cycles without any delamination. If you look at the gel fill module, you see that after 100 cycles, you can see some perhaps delamination, but clearly after 500 cycles, delamination can be clearly seen on the device, and with 1,000 cycles, the module is already broken. If we use a module with a base plate and the DBC is applied on the base plate, you see the same phenomenon. The base plate didn't bring any extra advantages or any longer lifetime in terms of thermal cycle. After 500 thermal cycle, you see the base plate and the DBC that are really delaminated, and you will have thermal extra heat because the thermal contact is not good, and the system will fail. While with this molding, we can withstand 1,000 cycle without any issue.
Okay, so there is quite a lot of differential between the life cycles, the comparisons there. That's absolutely amazing. So in terms of the products, what power range is covered by the PIM portfolio?
It makes sense to make the PIM portfolio for high power. PIM are for more high power, and so we'll cover the range of 5 to 20 kilowatt motors in industrial application. I think with consumer will stay with smaller module because they have smaller power motors and smaller motors, and it's much cheaper and easy solution. PIM is in the middle in terms of complexity because you have the driver externally, but it allows perhaps more flexibility in terms of handling the EMI and the efficiency. So that's why the PIM, the transformer PIM range will be for the high power.
Okay, and in terms of the sizes and topologies available in the PIM package, what would they be?
So regarding the power of the motor that we have discussed at the beginning, around 5 kilowatts and up to 25 kilowatts, it translates into current. The current capability of our IGBT that we embed in those modules will start from 25 amp up to 200 amp. And it will depend on the layout of the module. If the layout is just a 6-pack or the inverter integrating only 6 IGBT, we can have higher current. And you can see that the 6-pack can handle up to from 100 amp to 300 amp. If we integrate the diode bridge and the brake, we will have a lower current capability. From 25 amp to 50, 100 amp will be the range, depending on the package. We'll have 2 packages. The Deep 26 that is already available, and we will launch in the near future this rectangular package with a pin on the 4 side. That's why we call it QLP74, 74 pin. And we have pins on all sides of the rectangular.
Okay, so
rectangle.
Looking at the range then as well, Didier, you mentioned one of the benefits about being the obviously the life cycle, but what other advantages can users expect using PIM?
First of all, the design of the PIM, transformer PIM, has been made in order to maintain the safety distance between the pins and also between the pins and the DBC, the top of the package. In this way, when you make the assembly of the transformer pin directly on the heatsink, you do not have to add any thermal interface material to make the isolation or to increase the creepage and safety distance. You can see on the table here that Greig you show that we have more than needed in terms of spacing, and we have taken to those calculations shown in the green column the fact that we have a pad and the dimension of the pad with some drilling tolerance and so on. So this is really a minimum that you will have in between pins, and you don't have to take care about safety. You just put the module, make the layout, and you respect all the safety distance that is needed.
Yeah, so I can see there that the spacing requirements, your actual is pretty significant compared to what the distance remit is for the standard. Yeah.
Yeah, this is also for sometimes making the layout easier, and also to avoid any solder in between 2 pins. So we have a minimum of 5 millimeter. In this way, even if we use wave soldering or any soldering process, we will avoid any solder jump between the 2 pins.
Yeah, I think that's quite an important point to raise there. That's not always evident when you look at these type of things, but that's a very good point that you raised there.
Also, you can see that our module is much smaller compared to regular gel film module.
Yeah.
We have the pin on the bottom, and we don't need any extra surface for screwing the module or maintaining the module. And in this way, we have a more compact solution. And what you can see also, we can use the ratio between the surface of the DBC and the surface of the package is bigger. And we can have also better thermal dissipation.
Yeah.
We can use also advanced technology in terms of DBC to also reduce the thermal impedance. So, regarding the assembly process also of the TMP, it's much simpler. We take the DBC, we make the layout on the DBC, we put the solder, we make the assembly of the die, we solder the die. After that, we place the lead frame and solder the lead frame, make the bonding, and then mold. So the step in terms of process is very simple in our side, making also a good reliability of the assembly of the module. And regarding to a gel film module, we have much less component inside and much less step to process those modules.
Yeah.
This is also going in the direction of having a higher reliability of the module.
Yeah, so you're actually reducing the bill of materials needed, but you're also increasing the thermal characteristics as well within the modules themselves. Yes.
Yes, and we can use different kind of DBC to have better thermal performances. We can use very advanced DBC to reduce the thermal impedance and having more power capability of the module.
Great. So I know from experience, a lot of the Design Spark members, they like to get their hands on with kits, evaluation kits, plus support tools for prototyping. Is there anything that you recommend? Have you got evaluation tools and like a support ecosystem, for example?
Regarding evaluation boards, we are currently developing a range of boards that we call a motor development kit. It will be made of mainly 3 blocks. The control layer it's a basic controller based on Xilinx DSP that will embed the software to drive the motor and will generate the gate drive. And we have 2 boards after that. One board is what we call the rectifier, either with a PFC or with just a diode bridge and a capacitor.
Yeah.
And a second board that will be the motor control, let's say the power of the motor control. And it can be either an IPM board or we'll have in the future this transformer PIM board to drive the motor that will be for a motor in a range of 8 to 10 kilowatts. So we'll have a dedicated board in this motor development kit with our transformer PIM. We are planning also to make board to have a standalone transformer PIM with a standard footprint, the same footprint as a gel film module. In this case, if you have a gel film module and you want to try our transformer PIM, you just ask us for this interconnection board with the transformer PIM module, and you can just try directly without changing the layout of your board.
Okay.
And then to support calculation and design, we have our power supply web designer, where on our website you will find a section called motion control. And if you go in that tool, you will be asked for a basic question about your application, like the motor parameters, the current, the phase, the phosphine of your motors, and so on. You enter all of that regarding your application, operation temperature, and so on. Then you select the parts you want to use. If you want to use a transformer PIM, you select by package. The package is the DIP26 we've seen before. And in the future, we'll have this QLP74 available. When you select this package, you have the list of transformer pin available. You select the one corresponding to your current or the one you want to try. Then you click Analyze, and you get the result. The result is a kind of a web page where you see the graph of the current inside your motor, and you see all the losses and the calculation of the thermal impedance of your heatsink you need, and so on. So all the losses are inside this result, and also the junction temperature of the devices. And if you want to get that and store that for as a proof of or compared several solutions, you can get a full PDF report out of those calculations, and you can store this PDF report for yourself.
So you've got the kit and you've got the web area where you can go in, you can put in your characteristics, and then you can get all the information that you need to then start designing. That's fantastic. So in terms of maybe just summarizing what we've spoke about today, that there is quite a lot of benefit, obviously, for integrated power modules within control, and moving forward, you spoke about some of the applications, for example, electric vehicles being a growing market. But what would you consider to be sort of like the takeaways that we can take out of today, and also around the PIM portfolio?
First of all, we have introduced our transfer mode pin products for having longer life and higher reliability, and offer that to the customer. You can use this longer life or lifetime in two ways. Either having a module with more stress and keeping the same lifetime of the application, or having less maintenance on the application but having a longer lifetime. So this is a very good benefit for the customer. We offer a complete range of products. It means that all our transfer mode pins are, we have only two packages, and between those two packages, they are pin-to-pin compatible on a wide range of current. We have also different thermal base plate that can increase the thermal density and reduce the thermal impedance, and having a better power capability of the module. We have taken into account the requirement for safety distance and creep edge distance and clearance distance, and mainly the clearance distance between the heatsinks and the pin, allowing the transfer mode pin to be attached directly to the heatsink without taking care of, and adding any thermal interface in between. So you have a direct assembly that makes the assembly process easier. And I don't know what I can say else, but for me, it's a great idea. Yeah. I hope that the designer will enjoy working with our transfer mode pin and will take benefit of this longer lifetime, either to increase the performances of their system or reduce the maintenance cost.
Great.
And we will have more transfer mode pin coming with this quadratic or rectangular package.
Yeah, so it's definitely a growing portfolio for on semiconductor.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Well, that's been a fascinating insight into the range of products that you're showing us today. So for integrated motor control, obviously a growing market and bringing more flexibility to design engineers. And Didier, I'd just like to say thanks very much for joining us for Ask the Expert. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we'll talk again sometime soon. So thank you very much.
Thank you also, Greg, and thank you for listening to the discussion. And I hope you will take advantage of this discussion.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.